Hello beautiful people. If you're new to my channel then welcome to my channel, and if you come back for more then welcome back. A few weeks ago I put up a post on my Instagram asking you guys what you would like to see. Out of the few suggestions I got, one of them was to tell you guys about the basics of baking. So that's what we're going to do. So this is going to be a 3-part series because you cannot learn baking overnight. So I'm going to break it down into 3 specific parts and we'll take it nice and slow. The first half of this video is going to be about the basic tools you need for baking. So I've gathered all my tools and appliances that I know are essential for anything that I bake. So the first and the most important item is bowls. I'm sure you know you can't do baking without your bowls. So here I've got a plastic bowl and a metal bowl and these tiny little bowls. So this is the plastic bowl. I prefer buying bigger bowls because it's easier to work with and everything doesn't go flying around. So this is a metal bowl. As you can see, it's pretty big in size as well. There's no point trying to use a small bowl because things will get messy, stuff is going to fly out. Another plus point is whether you have a small quantity or a big quantity of batter, both of them will fit into this bowl, whereas a bigger quantity won't fit into a small bowl. So always pick a bigger bowl to do your baking. Also, using a metal bowl is better for cleaning off grease. On a plastic bowl, the grease is tougher to remove out, but while cleaning a metal bowl, it's much easier to get the grease off. So that's another plus point. I have this set of 6 bowls and they're small bowls, but they're really easy to use and they're really easy to store. But you definitely need to have smaller bowls so that you can weigh out your ingredients and stay prepped before you start baking. Being messy or hasty is not the way to go. Trust me, I've learned it the hard way. So it's better to always be organized and keep your stuff ready and prepared in smaller bowls. Number 2, a whisk or a hand beater. So if you're not into a lot of baking and you don't own a hand beater, there's no need to worry. I'm sure you have a whisk at home. This is known as a balloon whisk and it's a pretty big one. You can always use a hand whisk to beat up your batters, but it does take a lot more time, and especially if you want to incorporate a lot of air in your batter, this is not going to do the same job as this would do. So you can definitely use this. It's a lot of energy and muscle work to put in. For small light batters this works great. For bigger batters it will get very heavy on your arm. A hand beater is a baker's best friend. If you're planning on doing a lot of baking, definitely think of getting one of these. They're not as expensive. It makes your work so much easier and it gets done so much faster. If you are looking to get into baking professionally or for a longer time, you should definitely invest in a stand mixer. So this stand mixer is a really basic one with a tilt head and it's got a plastic bowl. This hand beater fits into it. This is the set that it came with. This basically just makes the whole mixture by itself. You plug in your stand mixer over here and this bowl rotates around and it just mixes your whole batter and makes it so much more easier. Your whisks always have to be grease free. Make sure that when you wash them, if you still find a lot of grease on it, just boil some water and dip them into the hot water and the grease should go right off. Using a whisk with grease on it is dirty and also it can ruin some of your batters. Especially if you're trying to whip up egg whites, the fat in the grease is not going to help that, so it's just going to make it flat. Number 3, We've got the spatulas. I love spatulas. You can get them in so many colors. I really love getting colorful equipment because it just makes my table so much more brighter. I mean, just look at them. You can always use the small spatulas to empty your ingredient bowls because you don't need such a big one for a small bowl. You can use the bigger spatulas to empty your batters from your bowl. I hate wasting batter, so a spatula like this can really help you completely wipe out your bowl. Spatulas are also used for folding in mixtures. Not every mixture needs to be beaten with a hand beater, so some mixtures just need a little bit of folding, so that's what a spatula can be used for. Number 4, a sieve. I'm sure you have this at home. Usually for baking, we use a fine sieve where the mesh has smaller holes so that nothing really gets through it. It's really important so that you don't end up with any lumpy sort of mixture and everything just gets through this evenly. Number 5, measuring equipment. You've got 2 types of measuring equipment that you can use. One is a measuring scale and the other is measuring cups. It's better to pick one like this that has multiple measurements because you will be needing different sorts of measurements. I also have the amounts written over here, so it makes it easier. In case you don't have a measuring cup where the amount is written, you can definitely go online and just check for conversion charts. Weighing your ingredients is a must, and it's better to be on point than to go 5 grams above or 5 grams below. So a measuring scale works great for that because it lets you know exactly the amount that you're going to be using. Don't try winging it. Don't try just throwing in a little more or a little less. There are some ingredients like chocolate chips and sprinkles where you can do that, but don't try messing around with the rest of the ingredients because every ingredient plays an important role, and even a little more or a little less of it could change the whole texture and the balance of the cake. Number 6, we've got our thermometers. So you've got 2 types of thermometers. One is this, which you can hang inside an oven, and the other one is this. These ones are called oven thermometers, and they've got a small hook which you can hang inside your oven on any of the racks so that it can measure the temperature your oven is really baking at. The second type of thermometer is this. This thermometer is usually used for anything that you're cooking on the stove. Say you're making a caramel. Number 7, the last tool that I think is definitely an essential and I always keep on hand is this little tweezer. I know you must be wondering why would you be using a tweezer? So when I had just started baking, sometimes I would drop eggshells into my batter, or just some random stuff would be in there, or I would see something that's not supposed to be in there. So how do you remove something that's not supposed to be in your batter? Do not put your fingers in the batter, because no matter how many times you wash it, it's just more hygienic to not go touching the batter. Second, if you go to use a spoon or a fork, it is going to take out much more batter, or it may just slide in and stuff like that, so you're not going to get it out properly. The easiest way is to just use a tweezer. Make sure you buy a tweezer just for baking and keep it separately from all the other things. And every time you go to use it, make sure you wash it before. This tweezer makes it so much more easier to just go in, pick up an eggshell, remove it and throw it. And there's barely even a mess. So that's all the essential tools that I use for baking. Now let's get into the basics of ingredients. Before getting into the details, I just want to show you how I store my ingredients. I have multiple containers like this. These containers go into each other, so if they are empty, you can just store them into each other so that you save space. It's better to store your ingredients in an airtight container rather than leaving them in the plastic itself. It will stay fresh for a longer time. So ingredient number 1 is flour. So you get 2 types of flour. One is just regular flour, and you also get self-raising flour. They look the same, they feel the same, but they work differently. Self-raising flour already has a leavening agent, which is baking powder, added into it, and it also has salt in it. So most of the time when you do end up using self-raising flour, you have to be careful while adding salt or baking powder, since there is already some amount in it. So be careful of what kind of flour the recipe calls for. Ingredient number 2 is cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is not the same as drinking cocoa. Drinking cocoa is usually sweetened and has a number of other ingredients that are not required in a cake. Cocoa powder used for baking is just unsweetened cocoa. So here we've got our 3 types of sugar. The first one is granulated sugar. You would preferably not use this sugar in cakes. You use granulated sugar for recipes that require to melt it on the stove, like caramel or toffee. This is because granulated sugar is bigger in size and it takes longer to melt in the oven. Then we've got caster sugar. Caster sugar is fine crystals of sugar. This sugar is used for all types of cakes. This sugar is much finer and it gets incorporated into the batter easily and hence gives a more even flavor and texture to the cakes. The third type of sugar is icing sugar, or also known as powdered sugar. There is a slight difference between icing sugar and powdered sugar. Powdered sugar has only sugar that has been powdered and no other ingredient, whereas icing sugar also includes a small amount of cornstarch in it. Icing sugar has a powdered consistency. This sugar is used for all types of frostings and also for dusting on cakes and more. The next ingredient is brown sugar. There are 2 types of brown sugar as well: light brown sugar and dark brown sugar. This is dark brown sugar. The difference between the two is that dark brown sugar contains more molasses compared to light brown sugar. The amount of molasses can also change the texture, color, and flavor of your batter. Brown sugar is only used in certain types of cakes, for example banana bread, or otherwise it's used in cookies. Now we've got some baking soda and baking powder. This is a tricky one because people often get confused with the two. They both are leavening agents. Baking powder contains a little bit of baking soda as well. Baking soda is stronger than baking powder. Baking soda needs an acid and a liquid to react, which will help the cake rise. An acid such as cocoa powder and a liquid such as water or milk. Salt is a very important factor. Most recipes call for unsalted butter. So adding a pinch of salt in those recipes does bring out the flavor of the cake. But like we spoke about earlier, if you're using self-raising flour, there is some amount of salt already in there. So you have to be careful. If the rest of your ingredients do not contain salt, adding a small pinch of salt to your batter can definitely enhance it. A pinch of salt also helps to cut down the overall sweetness of the cake. Eggs can be really dirty. So always before using an egg, remember to wash it thoroughly. If you're using more than 1 egg in a batter, remember to put only 1 egg in at a time so that the batter doesn't curdle up. If you're not too confident with cracking eggs directly over the bowl, first crack them and put them into a smaller bowl and then transfer it into your baking bowl. As you know, butter and its consistency is very important in baking. As you can see here, we've got melted butter, soft butter, and cold butter. In most recipes, the consistency of butter that is used is soft butter. If you do end up putting cold butter or melted butter in place of soft butter, the consistency of your batter is going to change. Most recipes call for unsalted butter, but you can also use salted butter. If you do use salted butter, you have to make sure that the salt content that you're putting in is minimal to none, because the salted butter already makes up for it. Another pro tip: if your butter is completely frozen and it's just taken out of the fridge but you need it to thaw fast, just pop it in the microwave for 15 seconds at a time. After every 15 seconds, remove it out and check if it's become soft enough. If it hasn't, pop it in again for another 15 seconds till you get your desired consistency. If you try increasing the time, you're going to end up with half the butter soft and half the butter melted. So go slow till you reach your desired consistency. The next ingredient is vanilla essence or vanilla extract. Both of them are not exactly the same. There are three major differences between the two. Vanilla essence is cheaper than vanilla extract. Vanilla essence is artificially produced and vanilla extract is natural flavoring. And since it's natural flavoring, vanilla extract is much more concentrated and the flavor is stronger. That's why the amount of vanilla essence that we put in is much more than the amount of vanilla extract. The last ingredient for today's video is chocolate. When you're using chocolate to put in a batter, such as a cake batter or a cookie batter, it's better if you use chilled chocolate so that while you're mixing it in the batter, it doesn't melt right away. It will end up melting while it's baking. If you're using the chocolate for a chocolate ganache or a chocolate sauce, it's better to let it come down to room temperature and then chop it up into small bits so that it can melt evenly. So guys, I hope you liked this video and I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please let me know down in the comments. In the next part, we're going to learn all about the temperature and how it plays a really important role in baking your cake. We're going to learn how to properly line our tray so that our cake does not get stuck to it. And we're also going to learn the proper mixing method. So if you found this helpful, please stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 coming up where we're going to be frosting our cake. So please like, comment and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in my thumb strudel again. Bye!